Hey guys, welcome back to Bible in the Backyard. I'm Haley. This is my backyard. Last video, I started a section on the book of Judges and studying the book of Judges. So we're going to be going through this a chapter or two at a time. As I was studying chapter 3, I was going to go into chapter 4, but then I realized chapter 4 and 5 go together, so we're just going to focus on 3. And a lot of things happen in 3. Just bless him. Israel just can't get it right. Just can't get it right starting out. Okay, so to sum up what's happened is that in Judges 1 and 2, it ends up Joshua passes away, which Joshua was the leader of the children of Israel after Moses. So Joshua passes away. A generation or two after that is kind of where we pick up chapter 3. In the generation or two after that, they don't know all the battles that have been fought in the Lord's name. They don't know the history of the wilderness. They don't know the history of coming into the land of Canaan, where everything is amazing and whatnot. They just kind of live there. They live there. It's easy. There's other cultures, other tribes there that are so easy to fall into and whatnot. So we pick up with chapter 3, verse 1 in the book of Judges. It says, "Now there are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known all the wars of Canaan. Only the generations of the children of Israel that might know, to teach them more, at least such as were before, knew nothing thereof." So they didn't know war. They didn't know how to fight. They didn't know combat at all. "Namely, the 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites that dwelt in the Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal-Hermon unto entering in of Hamath. And they were to prove Israel by them, to know whether that they would hearken unto the commandments of the Lord, which he commanded of their fathers by the hand of Moses. And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be their sons, and gave their daughters to their sons, and served their gods. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and forgot the Lord their God, and served Baalim and the groves. Therefore," verse 8, "the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of the some king of Mesopotamia. And the children of Israel served this king for 8 years." So what happened? The function of the children of Israel is that they were supposed to be set aside. This was the intention of Israel. This is the intention of Israel throughout the entire Old Testament. The intention of Israel was to not have a king. It was to be completely different than every other tribe and every other group of people on the earth. They were supposed to be ruled by God, and they were supposed to follow God and follow his commandments. However, Israel doesn't do that. Israel ends up, and their point of coming even into Canaan and taking over Canaan, they weren't supposed to leave any other tribes. It was just supposed to be them. That's what God had set aside for them. So they didn't necessarily do what God wanted them to do in the first place. They're like, we kind of like you. We're going to keep you. Oh, you're going to surrender? Okay, you can stay. That's not what God intended for them to do. So it ends up them being married into different tribes and different worships and different gods and different this and different that. And so they just kind of adopted the culture and the worship factor around the different tribes of Israel. So now they fall into this king of Mesopotamia for 8 years. And then, verse 9, and when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer to the children of Israel, who delivered them, even it's Caleb's younger brother, Othniel, the son of Kenaz. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel and went out to war. And the Lord delivered this king of Mesopotamia into his... It says his name. I can't say his name. I'm not even going to attempt to. It's just the way that it is. My Sunday school kids definitely know how I read this Bible in different names and places that I can't read. I try my best, and then if it's too hard, sorry. So it said, delivered this king of Mesopotamia into his hand, and his hand prevailed against these people. And the land had rest for 40 years. So 8 years of captivity, they came out of it. Othniel was the judge. They had 40 years of rest. And the land had rest 40 years, and Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. Okay, so the judge dies. Verse 12. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. Okay, so, bless Israel's heart. I can just imagine, God's probably sitting up there going, oh, my children, my children, my children, I love you so much. What are you doing? And the king of Moab against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. Verse 13, and he gathered unto him the children of Ammon and Amalek, and went and smote Israel, and possessed the city of palm trees. So the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, for 18 years. So they were in captivity for 8 years. Were freed and were happy to live a life for 40 years. So that was basically a whole generation died out, and a new generation came. And now they're going to be in captivity again for 18 years. But when the children of Israel, this is verse 15, cried unto the Lord raised them up a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Jerah, a Benjamite, a man left-handed, and by him the children of Israel sent a present unto Eglon, the king of Moab. This is interesting about... because Benjamin means the son of my right hand. My child's name is Benjamin. I didn't know when I named him that was the meaning of it, but he is the son of my right hand. This is Hebrew idiom used here, suggests that left-handedness may have been viewed as a defect, because a lot of people's prominent hands and dominant hands are right hands. So when you're left-handed, it's like, oh, you're left-handed? That's so cool. It's still cool to this day. I mean, come on. But verse 16. The Ehud made him a dagger, which had 2 edges, of a cubit length, and he did gird it under his raiment upon his right thigh. And he brought the present unto Eglon, the king of Moab. And Eglon was a very fat man. This is important. It really is important. And when he had made an end to offer the present, he sent away the people that bare the present. But he turned himself again from the quarries that were by Gilgal, and said, I have a secret errand unto thee, O king. Who said, keep silence. And that all stood by him went out from him. And Ehud came unto him. This is verse 20. And he was sitting in a summer parlor which he had for himself alone. And Ehud came and said, I have a message from God unto thee. And he arose out of his seat. And Ehud put forth his left hand and took the dagger from his right thigh and thrust it into his belly. And the haft went in after the blade, and the fat closed upon the blade, so that he could not draw the dagger out of his belly, and the dirt came out. Okay, this is going to get kind of gruesome. I apologize. If you've made it this far, here's a little gift for you. It says in my notes down here, it says Eglon's dirt that's the filth from his intestines. It's not just blood and water and whatnot. It's dirt. It is the stuff inside his intestines came out. And it's a final humiliation for Israel's defeated enemy. But that's not all that happens. That's not all that happens. Just wait a second. Wait a second. In verse 22, it says, and the dirt came out. And verse 23 goes into and says, then Ehud went forth through the porch, shut the doors of the parlor upon him, and locked them. So I guess this was custom. I guess this was custom for Ehud to do this when he had visitors. When he was gone out, his servants came, and when they saw that, behold, the doors of the parlor were locked, they said, surely he covereth his feet in the summer chamber. And they tarried till they were ashamed. And behold, he opened not the doors of the parlor. Therefore they took a key and opened them, and behold, their Lord was fallen down dead on the earth. And Ehud escaped while they tarried, and passed beyond the quarries, and escaped unto Serath. They tarried till they were ashamed. So they tarried. That doesn't tell you how long they tarried. It doesn't tell you that it could have been 30 minutes. It could have been a day. They could have tarried for a day. They could have tarried for a day. And it's like, wait, he's not coming out. What's going on? What's wrong? He could have just been in there for a few hours, and then they came and found him. They didn't know. It doesn't tell us how long they waited. They just waited until they were like, okay, something's wrong. Now I gotta go figure out what's wrong now. And in this time that's passed, Ehud just closed the door, locks the door, and just leaves. So he completely leaves Moab, goes back to Serath. In verse 27, and it came to pass when he was come that he blew a trumpet in the mountain of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the mount, and he before them. And he said unto them, follow after me, for the Lord hath delivered your enemies and the Moabites into your hands. And they went down after him, and took the forwards of Jordan towards Moab, and suffered not a man to pass over. And they slew Moab, and they slew of Moab at that time about 10,000 men, all lusty, and the men of valor, and there escaped not a man. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest for 80 years. And then another one says, after him was Shamgar the son of Anath, which slew the Philistines 600 men with an ox goad, and he also delivered Israel. So with Ehud, they had 18 years of captivity. And then now, where's my notes? 80 years is 80 years. They had 80 years of peace. And then I guess Shamgar came and did it. They don't tell us how necessarily long that he was a judge. They just said that he did judge Israel, which is Shamgar. So they have gone through, in chapter 3, they've gone through 3 different judges. Othniel, which is Caleb's younger brother, Ehud, and Shamgar. In chapter 4, kind of a little pretense here, or a little preview. You kind of have Deborah, who is the prophet, and then you have Barak. She kind of partners with Barak, but we're going to see Deborah play a bigger hand in this than Barak does. So promise I'm good. It's allergies. And whatnot. So that is chapter 3, the book of Judges. Thanks, guys.